Ever get that feeling like you forgot something, you know?
Right.
Like left the stove on or the front door unlocked.
Oh, yeah.
But now amplify that feeling like 1,000 times over. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what Rhonda Giari's family has been dealing with for over 15 years.
Oh, gosh.
She vanished from her apartment in Fenton, Michigan back in 2009, left behind, well, a whole lot of unanswered questions,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
a family that's desperate for closure.
It's a case that chills you to the bone. One minute she's there, the next gone.
Yeah.
Leaving behind this really unsettling scene. Uh, Untouched clothes laid out, the kitchen light on, the bed looking slept in.
Huh.
It's almost as if she was snatched away mid-routine.
And to make matters even more perplexing, Fenton wasn't exactly known for these kinds of disappearances.
Right.
This wasn't some big city where people go missing all the time.
Yeah.
This was a quiet town where everyone knew everyone.
Exactly. Which is why Rhonda's case sent such a shockwave through the community. It shattered this sense of safety, made everyone wonder, could this happen to someone I know?
We've been poring over a mountain of information about Rhonda police reports, interviews with family and friends, even a cold case card deck that features her story. Let me tell you, it's like stepping into a real-life mystery novel.
What struck me right away was how seemingly ordinary Rhonda's life was before she vanished.
Yeah.
She was an artist. She was in True Lies,
Oh, wow.
taught acting to kids, loved painting. She was just a vibrant personality, deeply connected to her family.
A single mom raising a 6-year-old daughter, Maddie.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine the pain Maddie has endured growing up without her mother, always wondering what happened that night.
Absolutely. And that's a thread we'll keep pulling on as we delve deeper into this case, because beyond the facts and the theories, there are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed by Rhonda's disappearance.
Speaking of facts, let's rewind to February 2009. Retrace Rhonda's last known movements. She was last seen in her bathrobe late in the evening.
Which immediately raises red flags.
Right.
Why would she be in her bathrobe so late at night? It suggests something out of the ordinary was happening.
And then there's the detail about the daily phone call she made to her mother every morning at 7:30, like clockwork. When that call didn't come, her family knew something was terribly wrong.
Yeah, it was completely out of character for Rhonda. She was a creature of habit, especially when it came to keeping in touch with her loved ones.
So what did the initial police investigation uncover? Were there any signs of forced entry? A struggle? Anything pointing to foul play?
No signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle. The apartment was neat, except for those unsettling details we mentioned earlier. It was like she just vanished into thin air.
Which must have made it incredibly difficult for the police to get a handle on things. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
The police launched a massive search effort. Helicopters, volunteers combing the area. They even brought in cadaver dogs to search Crane Lake, which was near Rhonda's apartment complex.
Hold on, why Crane Lake specifically? Was there something connecting Rhonda to that location?
It turns out a neighbor she often spent time with, a man named Dwayne, used to fish there frequently. He became a person of interest early on in the investigation.
Ah, so they were looking for any evidence that might link Dwayne to Rhonda's disappearance. Did the dogs turn up anything?
They actually got some hits near the lake, which in cadaver dog lingo means they detected the scent of human remains.
Wow.
But there's a snag. The lake was frozen solid at the time, making a thorough search impossible.
So frustrating. Knowing there might be something there, but not being able to get to it. Did they ever go back and search the lake once the ice melted?
They did, but unfortunately, nothing concrete ever materialized from those searches.
It's like hitting a dead end every time they turn a corner. This Dwayne character, what was his relationship with Rhonda like? And how did he react when questioned by the police?
Well, accounts differ on their exact relationship. Some described him as a close friend, a sort of big brother figure to Rhonda. Others suggested it might have been more than just friendship.
Okay, so a bit of a gray area there. And how did Dwayne respond when the police came knocking?
His story kept changing. Initially, he claimed he hadn't seen Rhonda the night she vanished. Later, he changed his tune, saying they did talk that evening.
That's definitely suspicious behavior. Did they press him further?
They asked him to take a polygraph test, but he ultimately backed out on the advice of his lawyer.
That's not exactly a good look. Did the police have any other leads? Any other people of interest they were looking into?
There was one other peculiar detail. A mysterious phone call Rhonda received the night before she disappeared. It apparently left her upset, but the number couldn't be traced.
That's unsettling. It adds another layer of intrigue to the case. Was there any indication of who the caller might have been?
Unfortunately, no. Back then, tracing calls wasn't as straightforward as it is today. Technology has come a long way since 2009.
I can imagine.
Mhm.
So we've got this Dwayne character with a shifting story, a refusal to take a polygraph test. And then there's this mysterious phone call that left Rhonda visibly upset. It's like pieces of a puzzle scattered on a table, waiting to be put together.
And that's what makes cold cases so fascinating and frustrating. It's like trying to solve a riddle where the answers are locked away in the past.
But sometimes a new piece of information can surface, a new lead that can shake things up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened in Rhonda's case, a decade after she vanished.
Right.
But we'll delve into that intriguing twist later.
So we left off with Rhonda's case going cold.
Right.
Years passed, with no new leads, no arrests, no answers. The trail had gone ice cold.
Yeah.
It's a heartbreaking reality for so many families of missing persons. The not knowing, the endless waiting, the gradual fading of hope.
It's like a wound that never fully heals, a constant ache in the hearts of those left behind.
Exactly. And in Rhonda's case, that ache was felt most acutely by her daughter Maddie,
Yeah.
who was only 6 years old when her mother vanished.
Right.
Imagine growing up with this gaping hole in your life, this unanswered question that hangs over everything.
I remember reading an excerpt from like a remembrance Maddie wrote for Rhonda a few years back. It was published in a local newspaper. It was gut-wrenching.
Oh, wow.
She talked about trying to piece together fragmented memories of her mother,
Mm.
clinging to those precious moments.
There's one line that really stayed with me.
Yeah.
She wrote, "I spend so much time wondering if she'd be proud of me, wondering if she'd smile when I walked in the room.
Aw.
I spend time trying to remember what it felt like to hug her, to hear her say, 'I love you.'"
It's a stark reminder that behind the police reports and the investigative theories, there's a real human story, a family shattered by this unexplained loss.
And it's why the resurgence of the case in 2019 brought a wave of mixed emotions, a glimmer of hope tinged with the fear of reopening old wounds.
So what sparked this sudden resurgence after a decade of silence? What new piece of the puzzle emerged?
A woman named Brenda came forward with a rather bizarre tip. She claimed her nephew, who had since passed away, had confessed something unsettling to her before his death.
A deathbed confession. Okay, now my ears are perked up. This is where things start to feel like a true crime documentary.
This nephew, Jack, had been in prison at the time of Rhonda's disappearance, so he couldn't have been directly involved. But his comment suggested he knew something. He told Brenda that Rhonda was buried near Crane Lake.
Wait a minute, didn't we talk about Crane Lake earlier? Wasn't that the spot where the cadaver dogs got those hits? And wasn't that where Dwayne, the neighbor Rhonda spent time with, used to fish?
You're connecting the dots perfectly. It's almost as if these seemingly disparate pieces of information were suddenly aligning, forming a new and disturbing pattern.
So what happened next? Did they search the area based on Jack's tip?
They did. They sent out a canine unit, but unfortunately they didn't get any definitive hits. Remember, this was 10 years after Rhonda's disappearance.
Right.
The landscape could have changed, weather could have eroded any potential evidence. Plus, Jack's information was vague.
Yeah.
He didn't give specific coordinates or landmarks.
It's like they were searching for a needle in a haystack, blindfolded.
A frustrating situation, to say the least. But the tip was too significant to ignore, especially when they discovered a link between Jack and our old friend, Dwayne.
Wait, what? There's a connection between Jack, the deceased nephew, and Dwayne, the neighbor who was a person of interest early on. Okay, now this is getting really interesting. What's the connection?
Turns out they knew each other. Jack's family lived near Crane Lake, and Dwayne was actually best friends with Jack's father.
Wow. Small world, huh?
Yeah.
So are we saying Dwayne is back in the spotlight as the prime suspect?
It's not that simple, unfortunately. Remember, Dwayne had passed away several years before Brenda came forward with her tip. So we're dealing with a dead man who can't defend himself or provide any answers.
Okay, so if Dwayne is out of the picture, what are we left with? A deceased nephew with a vague confession and a connection to the main person of interest, who's also deceased. It's like a hall of mirrors reflecting back on itself.
Exactly. And that's where Detective Cole enters the picture. When he took over the case in 2023, he decided to start fresh, meticulously re-examining all the evidence, re-interviewing everyone involved who was still alive. He wanted to take a fresh look at everything.
Did he find anything new? Anything that previous investigators might have missed?
He focused heavily on that mysterious phone call Rhonda received the night she vanished.
Right.
With advances in technology, he hoped there might be a way to trace the call now, even though it had been impossible back in 2009.
So, like those CSI shows where they enhance grainy security footage, and suddenly the bad guy's face is crystal clear.
Kind of like that. But unfortunately, the technology wasn't magic. They tried everything to trace the call, but it was a dead end.
Back to square one. But surely Detective Cole didn't give up there. He seems like a determined guy, judging by what we've learned about him.
You're right, he didn't. He revisited Crane Lake, focusing on the undeveloped land near where the cadaver dogs had initially given those indications. And remember, Dwayne had connections to that area, with both his best friend and Jack's family living nearby.
Wait a second. Are you talking about that 100-acre stretch of land that was mentioned in the police reports? The one that had never been fully searched?
Exactly. Detective Cole spent weeks combing through that area looking for anything that might connect Rhonda to that location.
It must have been like searching for a proverbial needle in a haystack. Did he have any luck? Did he find anything that could shed light on Rhonda's disappearance?
We'll have to wait and see. At the time of our last update, the search was still ongoing. But even if nothing concrete turns up, Detective Cole's efforts show that Rhonda's case is far from forgotten. He's not letting this one gather dust in some filing cabinet.
It's reassuring to know that someone is still fighting for Rhonda, even after all these years. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about something that caught my eye while I was going through the source material, this cold case card deck. It's a fascinating initiative.
Absolutely. These decks are distributed in prisons, jails, even sold to the public. It's a brilliant way to keep these cold cases in the public consciousness.
And to potentially jog someone's memory. Someone out there might have seen something, heard something that they didn't realize was important at the time.
Exactly. Sometimes it's that one seemingly insignificant detail that can break a case wide open.
So how does Rhonda's case fit into all of this? Is she featured in one of these decks?
She is. Rhonda's case is featured on the Ten of Spades. Her sister Dee described it as a much-needed kick in the ass, a motivation to keep fighting for answers.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope. And sometimes, hope comes in the form of a playing card. But before we get too deep into the cold case card deck and its impact, let's take a quick step back and revisit Rhonda's life before her disappearance. What kind of person was she? What were her passions? What made her tick?
Rhonda was a complex and fascinating individual. She had her share of struggles, but she was also a fighter, a survivor. She was deeply connected to her family, and she had a vibrant, creative spirit.
I'm eager to learn more about the woman behind the mystery. Let's talk about that now. So we've been talking a lot about the investigation and the theories and the suspects, but let's take a moment to remember the heart of this story, Rhonda herself.
Right.
We know she was an artist, an actress, a mother.
Yeah.
But what was she like as a person?
You know, she was described as incredibly vibrant and energetic, someone who just lit up a room. She had a real zest for life, even in the face of challenges. And she was a devoted mother to Maddie. Family was everything to Rhonda.
Yeah, that really comes across in the interviews with her siblings. They talk about her with such love and admiration. You can tell they were a close-knit bunch.
Absolutely. And it's heartbreaking to hear them talk about the void that Rhonda's absence has left in their lives.
Yeah.
You know, they still hold on to hope, but there's this palpable sense of grief and longing in their words.
Yeah. It makes you wonder about the psychological impact on them, especially Maddie, who's so young when Rhonda disappeared. Imagine growing up not knowing what happened to your mother, always wondering, always searching for answers.
It's a trauma that stays with you, and it speaks to the importance of finding closure, even if it's not the closure we hope for.
Right.
Sometimes just knowing the truth, however painful it may be, is better than living with the uncertainty.
Speaking of truth, let's circle back to those cold case card decks. You mentioned they're distributed in prisons and jails. Have they actually led to any breakthroughs in other cases?
They have. There have been several instances where someone saw a card, remembered something, and came forward with information that helped crack a case wide open. It's a testament to the power of keeping these cold cases in the public eye.
So it's not just a gimmick. It's a legitimate tool that's making a difference.
Exactly. And it highlights the fact that sometimes the key to solving a mystery lies not in forensic evidence or complex investigative techniques, but in someone's memory. That one person who saw something, heard something that they didn't realize was important at the time.
And maybe seeing Rhonda's face on that card will trigger someone's memory, lead to that one crucial piece of information that breaks this case wide open.
That's the hope. And it's why initiatives like these card decks are so crucial. They keep the hope alive not just for Rhonda's family, but for countless other families who are still searching for answers.
It's a reminder that these cases are never truly closed, that even after years, even decades, there's always a chance that justice can prevail.
And it speaks to the tenacity of people like Detective Cole who are dedicated to pursuing these cases, no matter how cold they may seem.
He's a shining example of someone who refuses to give up, who believes that every victim deserves justice, no matter how much time has passed.
Absolutely. And his efforts, combined with initiatives like the Cold Case Card Deck, give us reason to believe that one day, Rhonda's family will finally get the answers they deserve.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the perplexing details of Rhonda's disappearance, the twists and turns of the investigation, the enduring pain of her family, and the glimmer of hope that initiatives like the Cold Case Card Deck represent.
Yeah.
It's a complex and heartbreaking story, but it's also a story of resilience, of unwavering love, and of the relentless pursuit of justice.
Absolutely.
If you have any information about Rhonda's disappearance, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, please contact the authorities. Your call could be the missing piece of the puzzle, the key to bringing peace to Rhonda's family and finally bringing her home. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of a cold case. Rhonda Jiari's story reminds us that behind every missing person's case, there's a family yearning for answers, a life interrupted, and hope that one day justice will prevail.